Seth Katz, Vice President of Revenue Cycle and Health Information Management for University Health. Thanks for taking time with me today. I want to dive in on SparkChange, and the first thing I want to ask you is actually, what were the challenges you were facing when you guys decided to find a partner at all?
When we first started looking for a partner, it was because we had a number of challenges, especially in the tech side of our revenue cycle, getting the most out of that platform, having both the people who knew how to use it, manipulate the data properly and build it, as well as how to train our staff to properly use it to the best of its potential, because that's the lifeblood of our organization. It's how we get paid. It's how our staff get paid every 2 weeks. It's how we keep the doors open. And we've been a long-term Cerner client since the 90s.
Oh, sure.
And we're a big reference client for them. We're all in on Cerner, but we knew there were still some gaps there. Mm-hmm. And so it was through some of our connections with them that we first heard about Spark, who said, here's a group of guys who came from Cerner, who know the revenue cycle platform incredibly well, who know how to write reports and do some of the back-end work that we desperately needed and could help augment our existing staff to help kind of take us to the next level. Mm. And that led me to reach out to Sal through LinkedIn, just DM'd him. And we moved pretty quickly from there.
Typically, as a provider looks to engage a vendor in this space, I mean, I've heard the sales cycles go up to 18 months. It's a lot of vetting, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of, you have to go through all the criteria and whatnot, but it's really about building the relationship. Did you find that you were comfortable pretty quickly?
We were very comfortable very quickly with Spark. We had them come out, help. They were local, but we got all of our revenue cycle leaders together, sat in a room, and Sal and the team basically said, here's what we see at other hospitals. What are your challenges? There were a lot of the same. They were able to show us already how they fixed all of those for other clients. So very, very quickly we realized, okay, these guys knew what they were talking about. They understood our challenges. They've worked with the people who have the same issues as us. And as a result, we didn't have this big, long, drawn-out process. There wasn't an RFP bid. It was, this team knows Cerner. That's the expertise we needed. We didn't need someone who knew a bunch of different solutions and, also knows Cerner. Like, this is what they specialize in. And the fact that my leadership team of my rev cycle unit felt very confident after that one half-day meeting was about all it took. And I will just say this. I always say to the guys, to Sal and Tran and them, that my patient accounting director in particular is very, very hard on vendors. She hates almost all of them. She always thinks they can be doing better. Mm-hmm. Spark is one of the only ones she likes.
Wow.
And that is some of the best praise there is, that after that one meeting, she's like, yes, we need to sign with them, get them in here as fast as we can. We need these solutions that will help accelerate cash. It'll make people's jobs much easier. So, we moved very, very, very quickly after that first meeting.
Amazing. Do you have an opportunity in the early days to do referral calls and hear from other systems that had engaged Spark?
When we first signed with Spark, we didn't do a single referral. We just trusted them. They seem to know what they were talking about. Cerner spoke very highly of them as well.
Oh, sure.
So that was a good endorsement. Many people on our IT team had worked with them at Cerner or had interacted with them. A number of the people at Spark who now would work with us were at Cerner when we implemented their revenue cycle platform. So they actually were already familiar with us and our build. And so some of our team actually knew, I recognize that person. I recognize Craig, who worked on our charge tiers. So no, very, very comfortable. We didn't call a single other hospital. We let our leadership know we were doing this, and they were actually thrilled. Like, we found somebody who had that kind of expertise. They were pretty much like, how quickly can we sign on the dotted line? Like, moved very, very efficiently.
So it's an initiative, and with any initiative, you are going to set measures of success. You're trying to move specific needles. It's AR days, it's denials, overturn rate, it's credit balances. I mean, what were the measures of success that you had established for the initiative?
When we first started, we had a number of key targets we were trying to hit. The biggest one was eliminate a lot of manual work. We'd have a lot of clicks. We'd have a lot of people saying, I have to click this button 5 times to close stuff out. If we could just automate that, I could get those done. I could focus on other things that actually drive cash. So number one was automating a lot of our low-hanging fruit tasks. Number two was we had a number of accounts that were sort of stuck in la la land, in a black hole. We knew there were problems. We couldn't find them. So it was cleaning up a lot of just the build that allowed accounts to kind of get stuck in different areas that we'd had no access to. The third thing we wanted to focus on was reporting. That's always a big deficit, and while Cerner has some great report writers, when you log a ticket for a report, you sort of just go in a queue, and you got to wait for them to call your number. It takes 6 months. It takes 6 months. And so very quickly, there was a standard set of reports that Spark already had built for other clients. They were able to roll out that our staff could use immediately to identify, high dollar claims that were stuck in certain places, workflows that needed adjustment very quickly. So that was huge. And I'd say the last one was working with our charges and making sure that our charging structure was correct, that we had all the charges built, that we weren't undercharging for anything, that we weren't missing charges that were going to cost us revenue. And very, very, very quickly at our first, I think, quarterly assessment that we did with Sal and the team, they had already been able to show they saved us, well over 100 hours of staff time in just a short amount of time of, hey, we clean this up. No, this is ongoing automation. No one has to touch it ever again. It's going to do itself. And it proved its worth incredibly quickly to the fact that we then started expanding our scope with them within 6 months to go beyond that initial phase.
I want to kind of double click for a second on what you were talking about with the staffing aspect. Because whether I'm looking at HFMA or Becker's or HLTH, what they report as the number 1, 2, or 3 concern, staffing is going to hit 1, 2, or 3, regardless of the journal that you're reading. Mm-hmm. Staffing, I'm guessing, was a challenge for you guys. Can you tie what it is that SparkChange has been able to achieve for you to the staffing challenge?
Absolutely. Spark's done a great job helping our staffing challenge by automating a number of processes, and I'll give 2 good examples. One is, we always talk about on the clinical side of the house, we want nurses and doctors to work at the top of their license, top of their skill set, meaning I don't pay them to sit at a computer and click buttons or sit there and watch patients. They need to be treating patients, keeping people healthy. On the revenue cycle side, we've always had a deficit that because there's so many manual processes, we have a lot of people we hire with great skill sets that just sit there and button mash over and over all day long. We hire them, we get them excited to work for a hospital like ours, tell them about our mission and all this, and then sit them in a cube and say, okay, now click the tab key 18 times every time on this, and that's all you're going to do 8 hours a day for the rest of your employment with us. And so, for one thing, it helps with staff retention because they get to do more enjoyable things. They're not sitting here just clicking away every day just because that's the way the system's designed. They can focus on the higher process things or working with payers or working on things that actually bring in cash and not, well, the system's built this way, so I have to do this task. That's number one. But number 2 is absolutely by automating functions, we would never fire someone based on that, but we have not had to add staff at nearly the same rate. Because we're able to say, I don't need to have 3 people who do this job anymore who work our $0 accounts, because Spark Automation already closes them out. No one has to touch those anymore. We can redeploy staff to do other things. So it's a big, big, big staff benefit. And it's also great when we hire people now to say, again, I'm not sticking you in a cube and just having you button mash for the rest of your time. You actually get to focus on things that tie to revenue cycle, that go after payers, that go after revenue, that help our patients.
Just as an aside, what I find ironic is that as providers seek vendor support, right, when anything in the realm of quote unquote outsourcing, there are staff that have this sense of that being threatening. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, well, if they're going to outsource them, there goes my job. Mm-hmm. Or they're going to bring in automation, there goes my job, right? But there's, I have had so many health system leaders in this chair, it is just abundantly clear to me that there's not going to be a shortage of work. Just because we're bringing in automation, what you're talking about, I think, is phenomenal. Is that it's the opposite. It's the expansion of opportunity and career. It's the upskilling. It's the working on the higher order thinking capabilities that these people can bring to the table, rather than just clicking the tab button over and over again. I find it ironic that the opportunities are opening through these partnerships versus the concern that they have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the goal. Is while there are staffing shortages, and revenue cycle has never been more complex than it is now, between regulations and payer rules and all of that. So having good staff who have the best tools possible and can be as efficient as possible and focus on the tasks we need them to, it's worth its weight in gold. It's some of that soft ROI stuff, but it pays dividends in the long run. And absolutely, I will say nobody felt threatened at all by the automation. If anything, they were like, thank you, there's finally a way to get through this process that doesn't involve me banging my head against the wall. So most of the staff were thrilled to say, I can finally stop doing this that I've done for 2 years and I can go work on something else. So it absolutely is a great opportunity for staff. It's a way for us also to upgrade jobs in the long run by saying now these people are working on higher weighted things. They need to be better compensated for it. They have better job application that helps them grow. So it is definitely a win-win all the way around.
I think that's phenomenal. You've touched on it in a few different ways, but I'm just kind of trying to encapsulate this with a single question. What is it that you would say is really sets SparkChange apart from the other options in the marketplace?
The few things I think that set Spark apart are, one, a very, very deep-seated knowledge, especially on certain revenue cycle products. a lot of back-end knowledge, a lot of front-end. They've all done support for the product. They helped implement the project. So for Cerner clients, they know it through and through. They know what everyone's been through. They know what you're talking about. They're not just a consultant kind of selling you something. That's number one. I think number two is they really act as a partner. I mean, they're not nickel and diming you because you called them too many times this month. There's a lot of things that in their general blanket agreements are covered for automation reports that don't cost extra money, that they're going to roll out for you and help. They're always willing to come to the table and hear what's up. We've often brought them in the middle of other projects that they've not been involved in and just said, hey, we might just ask Spark, can we bounce this off you? We're stuck. Any ideas to even help, even if they're not going to do it, just help direct our IT team on maybe another way to get around this problem, and they're always willing to say, sure, hop on a call or send us the problem, we'll help you through it. So, they really feel like a partner in that way as opposed to a vendor that I'm just paying a monthly fee to and they're kind of helping us along, but, they might call and say, well, you asked for too much last month, so, we might have to readjust the contract or right size it. It's just, they understand our mission, they understand what we do, how they can be of service, and they just want to help however best they can. And they've thrown a number of different people at us across their organization to help. I mean, so they're always willing when we need something. They've never once said no or we need to slow down. They'll move as fast as we can.
Yeah, great flexibility.
Absolutely.
I'd be curious to hear from you if you're thinking if I ask you to think from the perspective of somebody who is in your chair, in the moment that we talked about right at the top, right, the challenges that you were dealing with at that time. So you've got a revenue cycle leader, VP revenue cycle, health information management, dealing with those challenges. You're now way down the road, right? You're miles ahead of them on a journey. Mm-hmm. What would you like to say to them? What guidance would you have for them as they face that journey forward now?
If I was talking to someone who's where we were a couple years ago when we first started with Spark, I would say just go for it. I mean, the best thing about this is when you talk to them as opposed to talking to any other vendor you're going to meet at a trade show or something like that is, again, this is where they all came from. This wasn't some company that a bunch of people got together and someone worked for, Bugs Bunny, Complex Claims, someone else worked for Roadrunner, AR Management, and they just wanted to come together. This is what they did. They all came up together. They all supported, built, designed this product. They implemented it with different hospitals. So unlike thinking, a lot of the fear sometimes for those people in my chair would be, I'm going to have to sit there and teach them first. Here's how we do things. Here's how we're set up. It's going to take a while. It's going to be very frustrating because they're going to only know the way from the hospital they came from. And you don't have to worry about that with Spark. If you're a Cerner client, trust me, they know it. They've done it. They designed it. They can help you through it.
Phenomenal. The last question I have is really, it's kind of open-ended, really. I only have my own instincts on where to take this conversation to get the best information that would be valuable for someone in your seat. So I guess the question I have is, what question didn't I ask you that I should have?
I think the question you didn't ask was, well, what's next? And I think that's the great thing about what Spark is focusing on too, is that it obviously started out of there is this gap in the market for Cerner clients where they need an extra level of support that just Cerner, being a massive multi-billion-dollar international corporation, can't offer. But it hasn't stopped there. So they rolled out a number of core products. So, for example, we use them for our charge reconciliation tool now. When we went to market to look for one, they just happened to mention, hey, we have a tool, you might want to look at it. We obviously said, okay, because we love what they do. And so we run all of our charges through it. We find missing charges, suspended charges. So they're getting into the software side. We use all of their dashboards for monitoring our AR. We're kind of helping them pilot and do their payer scorecard for accountability on our payer side and where we're being underpaid, how quickly we're being paid, denials, all of that. They're working in automation in beyond just Cerner, so kind of growing it. So I think the big thing is this isn't just a company that's sort of Cerner consultants or tech to augment your current IT team, but you can grow with them. And that's been the best part of our relationship is, again, it's not just we've got all this great support and they're doing it, it's we've been able to continue to grow and add. And they've done so well in those other pieces that we felt very comfortable saying, okay, we'll kind of take a flyer on, you're not a name brand for charge reconciliation, but we trust you. You guys know the system. You know your stuff well enough that we took that leap of faith with them and have been rewarded incredibly well.
Well, I think it's really valuable that you would take this time to share your experience. I think it's critical that where wins happen, because there's war stories, but there's wins, right? And we need to create more visibility for the wins. Share the practices that work, the tactics that have paid off. There's a lot of experimentation, especially around all the new technologies. people who have walked the path ahead, sharing the knowledge to those behind, I think is just absolutely critical, and I appreciate you spending the time to do that today. Thanks a lot.
My
Appreciate
pleasure.
your time, Seth.